Hey everyone, Rob from Southgate Media Group here. Before we get started with this podcast, we have a quick message. If this is your first time checking out the show, we love that you found us and we really hope you enjoy it. What we have to say is for the subscribers. If you enjoy our shows, would you please donate to help keep these going? We don't want to have to put traditional ads on these shows, but this does cost money. So we really do rely heavily on donations. To make a donation to the show, please go to our website, www.southgatemediagroup.com. Go to the page for the show, and in the upper right-hand corner is a donate button. It takes you right to PayPal, and you can donate whatever amount you want. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. And now, on with the show.
Welcome to Input Junkie. This is how this show works, for those of you that don't know. We try to squeak really loud and scare the heck out of you. No, I think it was a Lil. So here's how this works. Basically what we do is we break down, we just have a discussion about favorite inputs for the week, things that we want to share with listeners. It's kind of like if you met some friends at a party and you were kind of getting them to know them and you were sharing like, oh, wow, I saw this movie this weekend. It was really cool. That's the idea. You're just having a conversation with your friends about cool stuff that you saw, did, watched, whatever. And inputs, the way we define that, Chris, because you haven't been on Input Junkie before, and Lil, you haven't either. The way we define inputs is it's really open-ended. There really is no definition. It's something you've put in to your brain, to your stomach, whatever. So movies, books, TV, comics, food, whatever. Okay? And we're just going to kind of have a discussion about it. So I'll get us going. I want to highlight one that I saw this week. Oh, we should introduce ourselves. I'm Rob Southgate. With me,
Chris Mao.
And
Lil Canizzo.
And we might as well give some plugs here. Chris, you are...
I am the owner of Blue Box Cafe.
Yes, you are, which we are here doing Input Junkie live at the Blue Box. This place is awesome, and thank you so much for having us, Chris. This is a blast.
Well, thank you for coming, and thanks for being here. So.
And I just want to say, best coffee in the city. As you know, I have a little bit of a coffee addiction.
Yes, you do.
If I had to do a nonstop input of things that are my input, it would be coffee would be probably number one, and this is my favorite. So, no, I'm not buttering you up. I'm just telling the truth.
Thank you.
And your food is great, too. And then Lil?
I do other podcasts. One is called the League of Geeks podcast, and I also am on the Enough Said podcast.
Yeah, and League of Geeks is one you don't do for our network.
Correct.
So that one, you want to give the website?
Yes, it's www.theleagueofgeeks.com, and that's geeks with a Z.
And you know what? Before we get going, why don't you both give your Twitter? Lil, the Twitter that you do from?
Twitter from the League of Geeks at LOGEEKZ.
And Chris?
And we're from Blue Box. It's Blue Box 176.
There you go.
On Twitter for Blue Box Cafe.
And then we tweet from SMG Pods, and I tweet personally. It's getting late, folks. I tweet from R Southgate, so that's my personal one. Not that anything personal is going on there, but, you know, that's what it is. Okay, so these are things that have struck me as inputs that I've enjoyed over the last couple of weeks. Because it is holiday season, I'm not just going a week back. Although I have a week back, I got it a week back. Thank you.
Boom, boom.
There we go.
Boo.
I saw a movie that I haven't heard anybody else talk about, and I don't know if you guys have seen this. It's called The Dirties. Have you heard of this?
No.
Okay. I don't know where I found it, if it was on Hulu or where I got it. So I can't tell you where to find it, but seek it out. It's called The Dirties, and it came out in 2013. It's directed by Matt Johnson. He also wrote it with a co-writer, and he's the lead in it. And here's what it is. It's an indie film, and it's a troubling indie film. I'll put it that way. It's troubling enough that I watched it on my own, and I didn't want Martha, my wife, to have to watch it because I think she'd find it pretty disturbing. Here's what it is. It's about two guys that are high school guys. They're kind of nerdy, geeky. They're definitely the lower rung of the social ladder in their high school. they're kind of obsessed with like filmmaking and like they talk about horror movies and action movies and like all this stuff. They're us, okay?
I was gonna say, were you
high school
watching
guys.
my home movies from high school?
Yeah. We'll call one Lil. We'll call the other guy Chris, and the third guy Rob. And basically, what they decide to do is they start making a little like school project of them. They get bullied a lot, okay? And the bullies, they call them the dirties. And they decide to make a movie of them. This is where it gets disturbing, like taking out the dirties. So they like the dirties are, some of them are like on the football team and they're practicing football and they film this whole thing of them going through the woods and they come up and it's like them looking through a scope and then they act like they've shot at him and then they film something later where it shows the guy like falling over and they edit it so it looks like they shot him, okay? And that alone is not really great. I mean, like, it's kind of disturbing. I don't mean great like not a good film. It is. It's compelling. They show it to their teacher, and he has a very honest reaction to it, which is, yeah, this is not really cool. This is like if the Columbine kids came in and showed, here are the plans. And he's like, this isn't, I'm kind of upset by this. And they get very upset with him. So then they put him in the movie. And where it really gets crazy, I told you, it's disturbing. I'm not saying this is like lighthearted, like, hey, and then Sandra Bullock shows up and Lou Ferrigno and they arm wrestle. Lou Ferrigno should be he should have his own podcast on here because we talk about him enough. But as the movie goes on, the Matt Johnson character, the two friends kind of separate because the one character, Owen, becomes like there's one of the dirties, one of the girls who they're like, oh, she's awful, she's one of the dirties. He's in love with her, and she actually kind of falls for him, and they start going out. And that separates the two friends. And then it becomes the Matt character is no longer playing. He's still wanting to make this movie, but he plans a real attack. And I'm telling you, it's an upsetting film. But it is so fantastic. I loved watching this. I found it disturbing, and it was disturbing enough that after I watched it, I did not go and say, Martha, we need to watch this, because we watch a lot of indie films. We love indie films. We love, we just love movies. But indie films and that kind of stuff are big with us. This was disturbing enough to me that I didn't want her to necessarily watch it unless she said, I'm up for it. But I'm highly recommending it to those that are adventuresome, that say, you know what, I understand what it is now, and if it's that good, it's worth watching. It's like a Tarantino movie where you go, do I really want everybody to watch Reservoir Dogs? I love Reservoir Dogs, but I don't recommend it to my parents.
No.
Same thing here. I'm not recommending it in that respect. Know what you're going into, but I gotta say, this guy, he's a kid. He wrote and directed this movie, and it is excellent. And he's got a new movie coming out, something Avalanche, that he's got coming out in 2015 with Owen also. Both guys are in it. Highly recommended. But you guys haven't seen this. You don't know what I'm talking about.
No, have not.
Okay. Well, there we go. That was my input. Chris, you got an input?
I just saw Birdman yesterday.
Birdman. I haven't seen this
yet. It was
yet.
unbelievably good. Michael Keaton is fantastic.
Is he really? Now,
He's
Lil, have you
really
seen
good.
Birdman?
I haven't.
You know what it is, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's basically Michael Keaton being Batman.
With feathers.
Yes.
Well, I mean, the story is about him, not to give away too much, but it's 20 years past Batman, which it probably pretty much is right now, and where his career has been and how he looks at his life.
Oh, wait. So he's supposed to be like an actor that played essentially Batman.
He played Birdman, and then now this is where he's at in his career and how he regrets decisions he's made in his life and regrets things that he's done.
I had no idea it was about this.
It's fantastic. It is nothing to do with him being a superhero other than he played a superhero in the movies 20 or 22 years ago, and that's it.
Oh, I had no idea. Did you know what the story was?
Yeah. I've read some of the synopsis on it and looked into it just because we were going to get a screener of it and some things happened, but it from everything I heard, it's that, but it's it's some of the secondary characters involved in his life that kind of really bring out some of that story.
There's who's the girl in it? It's Emma Stone.
Emma Stone.
How is she in it?
She's fantastic. Naomi Watts is in it. She's fantastic.
I like her too.
Edward Norton is unbelievable in this movie.
He always
too.
is.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, you recognize a ton of the people in there, and it's just Galifianakis.
Oh, Zach Galifianakis.
He plays his friend, lawyer, producer.
We just
assistant
watched.
producer. Yeah, he's fabulous.
We just watched Hangover 2 this week, which is basically Hangover again.
Yes.
But I have to say, it had the single funniest line said by Zach Galifianakis that we have not stopped saying since.
Right.
When he meets the one person and he says that I'm a stay-at-home son.
Yes.
That is by far the funniest thing.
Or like it happened again. It happened again.
But when he says I'm a stay-at-home son, ever since then, Martha's like, you know what? You're a stay-at-home son. We live in your parents' house, and you stay at home. It's true.
It's terrible.
It's sad. So he's in it. Wow, this sounds.
Right.
This is a high recommendation.
Basically, what it is he puts everything he has into rewriting of on a Broadway play to legitimize his acting. And so he does.
Oh, okay.
It's on Broadway.
And he's going to play Birdman.
He's not going to play Birdman. He does. And I can't think of who it was off the top of my head, but it's a famous play that he redoes and kind of puts himself into the lead. And it's very much like a synopsis of his life and where he's at in his life.
Interesting.
As his character, and it's amazing how he goes in between him being the Birdman and him being himself and the regrets that he has and everything. It's a very good movie.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
It was one of those that you sit down and watch it, and then all of a sudden it's 2 hours later, you're like, it's over. I mean, it's one of those kinds of movies. So
wow. Now, do you know who directed it? Does anyone know? Usually that's the kind of stuff like I'm usually into. I didn't know if it was somebody.
It's somebody well known. I'm sorry, I don't have the information in front of me, and I did have it up.
It's Michael Keaton, and from what I hear, this is the like Michael Keaton's back, and everyone's happy he's here because of this movie.
Yeah, this movie's probably gonna do well at the Oscars.
Oh yeah, absolutely it will.
So this is an Oscar contender in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean I think it's been nominated for a ton of Golden Globes.
Yeah, it's the director is I don't know who this is. Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu.
He's done a bunch of. He's pretty prolific.
Yeah, I'm usually
director.
on top of these Indian foreign directors, but this is one that's eluding me. I'm going to see if I can tell who he is. So many of these guys make such he made Beautiful. He made Babel. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Babel and
21 Grams. Those are all good films. Beautiful is one that I didn't. Did you guys see Beautiful?
Nope.
Okay, Beautiful is one with Javier Bardem. And it was the first time I had seen Javier Bardem. And I didn't love the story of Beautiful, but oh my gosh, the acting in that movie is like Javier Bardem. When I saw that, I'm going to say his name 500 more times just because it's fun to say. He was so excellent in this movie that you walked out and you were like, oh my gosh, he needs to be in everything. And thank goodness he was in Skyfall because he was awesome in Skyfall.
he was great as a bad villain, a bad Bond villain.
Yeah, he's really, really fantastic. Wasn't he? He was in No Country for Old Men.
Men.
He's the bad guy in
Yes.
that. Oh my
That's
gosh,
fantastic.
he's like amazing in that movie. Oh my gosh. Okay, so that's who made Birdman. If I had heard that alone, I mean, there's so many things that are making me say this is a must see. All right, cool.
Yeah, it's the setting is beautiful. Just the way they portray being in the Broadway play and how they interact and everything was.
I had
eye-opening,
no
so
idea it was about any of this, so I'm in on this. Has anybody else seen Birdman out here? Since it is a live event, we usually try to ask. Nobody saw Birdman? Okay, well,
Get out there
now
and
we all
see
got to
it.
run out and see it.
Kathleen gives it
is
2
buying.
thumbs up.
She's taking us.
Thumbs
so-
up. Thumbs up, yeah.
Okay, Alil, you got an input?
No. Yeah, no.
Alil, you probably have 40 inputs.
Crickets.
You're worse than me.
I saw Into the Woods.
Into the Woods.
this week.
Okay, so you're saying this is good. You're recommending this. I can't help it. I'm shutting up now.
I had no knowledge of it. All I knew it was a Disney movie based on a Broadway musical. The movie is basically Cinderella, Jack and the Beanstalk, Little Red Riding Hood. I'm drawing a blank. There's like a little bit of Rapunzel in there and all this other stuff. Kind of a big mashup of this movie where Meryl Streep plays the witch and brings this whole thing together with Emily Blunt, and I can't remember the one actor. I think he's a Doctor Who actor.
James Corden.
James Corbin, yes. And it was very good. It was very good.
Mm-hmm.
My kids loved it. I took them to go see it because it was PG, not R like Alien.
Right. Like what you're famous for.
Yes.
That's a big cast in here.
Yeah, it's tons of people.
Anna Kendrick.
Anna Kendrick played Cinderella. Chris Pine played the Prince Charming.
Oh, I like Chris Pine.
And he was hilarious. I mean, he had a song that he sang with his brother, who was another prince, and I was laughing at that song. It was good. The movie is really good. It's not too long. It's not too drab. It goes really quickly. It's quick paced. There's a few bumps. I would say I wouldn't say it's a perfect movie, but everyone who was in it, I thought did a great job. Johnny Depp played the wolf.
How was he as the wolf? I wanted to ask.
It was the creepiest thing I've ever watched on screen.
Really?
And you know what? Because he sings this song to Little Red Riding Hood as she's skipping around, and it's not right. You know? It's like he's like, "Oh, you're flesh" and all this stuff. And I'm like, "Hey, man." And it would be different if he had a snout and everything, but he had like this little mustache. I mean, you saw he had like the furry hands and the paws and everything. So you kind of got it,
Yeah, but it's a little creepy.
Yeah, and then he's offered her candy. Like he opens up his jacket like a flasher, and he's got candy in there, and I'm like, okay. Tone it down a tad.
I have a question.
But I don't think any of the kids understood that,
Well, yeah, I have a question. Now, you haven't. None of us have seen the stage show. Has anybody here seen the stage show of Into the Woods? Okay, here's my question. For that character, did they make him look like a wolf, or did they make him look like this weird, creepy guy that they did with Johnny Depp? Kind of both?
Yeah.
Okay. Did they give him the snout? They did give him the snout. So the reason I'm asking that, I wonder if it hurts them that they put like Johnny Depp and they got to keep him looking like Johnny Depp, and it makes it creepier.
Well, I mean, they don't have to. I mean, because it's not like he has to look like Johnny Depp and everything. I mean, even as the Mad Hatter, he looked crazy.
He still looked like Johnny Depp.
Yeah, but he didn't. They didn't have to make him look like superstar Johnny Depp. Which they did here. I understand what they were going to. And my guess is it probably was hard for him to sing with the snout. That's my guess. If they try to.
Well, yeah, but don't they? It's not like it's a live performance. He can make it, and then they put it in later. Maybe you haven't heard of this thing. It's called animation. But they
what?
What?
Lip syncing? What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe it was like a little bit of the adult content. It was. I'm watching this scene and I'm just like, I look over at my wife. I don't think she got it at first, and I'm like. And then when he flashed the candy jacket, I'm like, woo.
Right.
I'm like,
Yikes.
That's wrong. But again, it was a good movie. My kids loved it. I mean, they still are. We saw it on Tuesday, and it's 5 days later, and they're still running around the house singing some of the songs from it.
So are the songs good? Because sometimes with musicals, they don't hit me quite right. Like Molly loves musicals.
Yeah, no, it's good. And
it's good.
I mean, I think the songs are good. The singers in the movie are good. I mean, Anna Kendrick is great. I mean, I think it's one to see. I'm not giving it the highest of recommendations to go see it.
But it was a good one this week.
But it was a good one to see. It's a good one to see with your kids. If I was a single guy, I probably wouldn't have gone to see it.
No, you'd be out trying to pick up Little Red Riding Hood with your creepy jacket.
I would be learning that song.
You've already got the weird stash.
Yeah, exactly. I do. I would just curl it up a little bit like Johnny Depp.
Curl it up. And I'm sure you got candy in your pockets. I know you.
Always.
Right.
But that's not for little kids. That's for you.
Exactly.
So my next input is one that actually was inspired by the man sitting next to me, by Chris. Last week, we watched Gone Girl this week. And here's the deal. I really enjoyed it. You recommended it last week. Yes. I did watch it. Now, here's the deal. It has hung with me for the whole week. That's the reason I'm bringing it up. I would have said, yeah, this was a good movie. I like David Fincher. I thought the cast was great. Ben Affleck, I really enjoyed in it. Although he's bulked up. The whole time I kept thinking, yep, he's Batman. He's Batfleck. And I liked...
But he's been that big since The Town. He's
but
been
he did,
that bulked up for a long time.
He just looked
bigger
big.
now.
Well, he is,
Yeah.
but he's still been big for a while. So.
I liked Rosamund Pike, which is interesting because she's strange. There's something strange in how she acts. It's almost a little aloof. But it worked so well. And by the end of the movie, I was so sold on her. I thought this was a fantastic film. And the thing is, watching it, I don't know. Like, we finished the movie, and we both talked about it a lot, and we enjoyed it. I'm sure other people have seen it. Has everybody seen Gone Girl? I don't want to spoil. I'm not going to spoil anything, I promise. Because really, there is a big twist. Have you guys seen this? Well, you saw it. But have you seen
I
it?
have not.
You need to see this. Here's the deal, though. Afterwards, it has hung with me all week, and especially the second half of the movie is what's hung with me.
Yeah.
The first half of the movie is really great, but it's the twist. And I keep tossing it over, thinking about that, thinking about the ending. It won't leave me. So
You mean how you get what you deserve?
Yeah,
Kind of ending?
yeah, but
I'm not going to say anything.
don't
That's
say
it.
anything. You need to see this movie. I thought this was excellent. And I'm a David Fincher fan, aside from Alien 3. Fight Club is a great movie. I know that, like, people go, oh, testosterone doused, whatever. You know what? Shut up. It's a great movie. I really like Fight Club.
Well, you can make a 2-hour movie out of a 60-page short story.
Yeah, and it's
fantastic.
It's fantastic. And we play Fight Club all the time, don't we, Molly? With my 7-year-old. What's the first rule of Fight Club, Molly? What's the second rule of Fight Club, Molly? That's right. She is not seeing that movie till she's 21 and out of my house. So, who's in Fight Club?
She doesn't talk about it, though.
Yeah,
So she's not really.
she has a
in
little
it.
scar, so she told Molly that she was in Fight Club. Isn't that sweet? She had the golden book of Fight Club. Isn't that sweet? So, yeah, man, Gone Girl. That's the one I'm citing. And I do want to point out, going into it, all I knew was Ben Affleck. And then when I saw Rosamund Pike's name, I was like, oh, yeah, I remember her. She was in Die Another Day. Mm-hmm. Okay. Tyler Perry's in it. He is not Medea. I enjoyed him quite a bit in it. And the surprise that I didn't know was in it was Neil Patrick Harris. And creepy. Creepy is the word. You know what? He is going to be in the second half of American Horror Story this season. I cannot wait. It's him and his partner. I don't know if it's his husband.
They're married.
Okay, they're married.
Yeah, they're married.
He is in it too. I've talked
with,
about it before. I've been enjoying Freak Show quite a bit, and I can't wait. And after seeing this movie, I am jazzed up for it. And I love Doogie Howser. Let me just put that on Front Street here. Okay, Chris.
Doogie
what do you-
Howser, Barney Stinson, man.
Barney
He's
Stinson.
Barney
Wait
Stinson,
for it.
absolutely. So.
You know what? I'm going to break order. Alil, what's your next one?
You know, the next one I want to talk about was it was actually a marathon that I watched on New Year's Eve, and it was called the '90s, the last greatest decade, and it was on Discovery HD, and I think it came out in around Thanksgiving.
Okay.
And I remember last year watching the '80s, where they kind of did. You know, I don't know if you remember the VH1. I love the '80s. I love the '90s.
Of course, we
But
make jokes about that all the time on our shows.
But it was like,
Hey, remember the 80s? That's what we always say.
It was actually a 5-part documentary, and they didn't go like year by year, but it was kind of like big story by big story. Went into a lot of the politics, and that's why when you were talking about your movie, a lot of it was about, they had a big segment about Columbine. They had a lot of stuff, and it was actually really interesting, kind of going back and remembering what was going on.
Yeah, and not just being a pop culture.
Right. It wasn't
Yeah,
just they had the pop culture stuff in there, but it was just like you get a little bit of that. They talk a little bit about like video games and stuff, but then it's like all of a sudden it's Clinton. And
Yeah.
It's, so it was kind of. It was
Why?
really
What happened with
interesting
that?
how
I missed all that news.
Yeah. There was a lot, But it was really interesting. It was really good. And they also had the 80s one on. It was like back to back on. And the 80s one I love because they had this big segment about Tetris
Okay.
and the Game Boy and how the guy before the fall of the Berlin Wall and everything kind of had to like get to Russia before everything was out. Had a talk with this guy in secret. It was like a covert operation to get Tetris on the Game Boy.
Really?
It was like,
Wow.
and it was really interesting, but it was a lot of fun. So
what's it called?
the 90s one was the 90s, the last great decade.
Oh my gosh. Okay, and it was Discovery Channel.
Yeah, it was like Discovery HD or like the Investigation Discovery. They hop on all those channels. So.
That's awesome.
It was a lot of fun.
I'm down
14
with that.
years ago?
Huh?
All of 14 to 24 years ago, it's the last great decade?
It is, yeah, that's what they said.
They've called it.
That's what
it's
the
all
title
downhill
was.
from
I
here.
don't know. I don't have my TV show yet, so it can't be.
It reminds me. There was a funny thing. I usually don't cite, especially later year Saturday Night Lives, but there was a funny thing that they did where they were doing things about like the 80s. I love the 80s and I love the 90s. And as they were showing the pop-ups, remember how they had the 4 screens? They're like, "Hey, remember the 80s?" And they start talking. It caught up with itself. And the comedians were making fun, were talking about their memories, and it was literally the segment that just happened. Like, hey, remember the 90s show? And they're like, yeah. And then when I said this, and then like they said the line before, like they remembered it before they said it, it was really funny. So it just it was funny the first time. It obviously wasn't funny this time. Yeah. So excellent. You got more about that one, or
No, I think that's kind of it. It just goes through the history of a lot of what happened in the 90s, and I know it was only 24 to 14 years ago, but there's a lot of things there that you remember, but maybe you don't remember as in depth. There was a big thing on Princess Diana, which was really interesting. That they went through a lot of stuff with her divorce, through her death, and a lot of things.
Right.
I forgot that George Clooney went on this paparazzi rampage, and they kind of brought that up. And
oh yeah.
And I'm like George Clooney in '97. Who cares about George Clooney in '97?
You did because he was in Batman with the nipples.
That was terrible.
Was that 97 then?
It was like
he was
90
Falconer on what? Sisters? Was that the show on NBC?
Yeah, something.
He was in ER.
Yeah.
No, he was on.
He was on ER.
He was on ER, yes.
No, let's go even further back. He
Facts
was
of
on
Life.
Facts of Life.
That's right. He yeah.
Oh, that's the worst.
When he had the long hair, right?
Yep. With Mrs. Garrett.
That's right.
R.I.P.
All right, Chris, you got
Is she
one?
dead? I don't know.
You know what? You brought up Saturday Night Live, and I don't know if you've been watching it or not because it's been pretty bad the last couple of years.
The last couple decades, yeah, I know.
This year's actually been pretty good because they don't have the star, and I think they've let
That
the
helps.
characters, which has helped because I think it's been actually pretty good.
Okay.
They've been able to do a little bit more, some riskier things, and they've been pretty provocative with their hosts, and I thought it was pretty good. Like Amy Adams was just on.
I like her.
She was really good, and she did a couple of skits that 10 years ago they wouldn't have even touched. I mean, they went a little far and not very family rated, but I've been enjoying the show.
Well, you know what? It's on at 10:30 here in Chicago. Sure. You don't need to exactly be family friendly unless you're just using it to put on, at the primetime 8 o'clock thing. But let's remember the roots of the show were the not ready for primetime players. So that's nice to hear. Although there have been really good people that have come out of it. Every time I go to watch it, I'm like, oh, ugh. I haven't tried this year. I'll try it.
Yeah, they haven't been too bad, and they're doing a lot more of the shorts, where they're doing like the little mini films, and they're actually pretty good.
I like that.
I do too. I think they, I obviously is it Andy Samberg did those, and they were really good.
Yeah,
and
those were good.
Now they're
go way back. Albert Brooks used to do them.
Yep.
Those were so excellent. So yeah, I like when they do that stuff.
Yeah, they put some thought into it, and they do them over time, and it's been pretty good. So like when was the Dr. Evil one where they had Dr. Evil interrupted over the
about
North
Korea?
It was
saw
actually
that.
really, really funny. So
Excellent.
it was good.
That's a great one. Okay, we've only got about 10 minutes, so we got time for a couple more here. I'm going to just run down a list here. That's one. Actually, I'm going to do two quick things. One of them super quick. This week, one of the things I've been doing is going to these different sites like Ain't It Cool and Latino Review, and just running through the top 10 lists of 2014. Just seeing what these guys are saying. So like their top movies, their top TV shows, their top comics. One of the things that I've loved probably more than anything, and that ties into this, and that's something I'm just encouraging people to do, is just kind of run through these different ones because they're not all what you think. And some of them are really fun to look at. The one that stood out to me, and I did this last year and it made me do it again this year, was, I think it was IO9 did one, and I think that... what's another big one? Like Newsarama or one of those did the top 10 indie comic books. And I can't recommend going through looking for these. Even if you're not really a comic book reader, if you're a reader at all, I highly recommend looking for a list of like the top 10 indie comics of 2014. Go back top 10 of 2013. Go out and try to get a few issues of things. The reason I recommend this, and I've beaten this drum a million times about comic books. I used to read a lot of superhero comics. You know, everyone thinks I do now because I talk about superheroes a lot, but I actually didn't read superhero comics for like almost 20 years. Seriously. It was a spot here and there, like, oh, I'll read one Spider-Man. And then I'd read it and go, okay, I'm good for another 10 years. I read indie comics. Things like Hate by Peter Baggy was like a revelation to me. 8 Ball by Dan Klaus. This is amazing stuff. And there's a lot of movies that are made that are based on these that you don't even know are based on these comics. So I'm going to just run down a list of indie comics that I read in 2014 that I'm going to recommend. And when I say indie, some of them are by Image Comics, which isn't necessarily an indie comic publisher now, but they're buying up indie comics and publishing them. So here they go. Nail Biter. Disturbing. It's about a town of serial killers, and the worst of the worst is one called Nail Biter. I'm not recommending it for the squeamish, but I am recommending it as a fantastic book. Kids, cover your ears. This one is called Southern Bastards. Once again, it's kind of like the movie Walking Tall, but the best parts of it, it is fantastic. Saga might be the finest comic book of the year. It's by Brian K. Vaughan. I've talked about it before. They did a compilation of the first year. Really, it's a sci-fi book. It is weird. It is so good.
Very weird.
It's very weird, but you know what? Those of you that love to get the feels off things, guess what? Full of feels. Trees is another one. Basically, people wake up one day and there are giant trees in major cities. And then for like 20 years, nothing happens to these and life starts to go on. And then one day, the book starts with, it turns out like there's alien goo that comes out of it, and now they got to deal with these things that they've gotten used to being in their everyday life are something foreign, and they don't know what to do with it. It's great. The Woods is another great one. Highly recommend it. This one I loved, and it is so strange. It's called God Hates Astronauts. Get it. It is so bizarre and so great. Cowl, if you like superhero things, Cowl, Cowl. Satellite Sam is a really weird one. It's about like a 1950s, like, what was that show? I'm pointing at my mom because she's going to know what this was. Remember these, like, remember on The Honeymooners when Norton loved the show and he wore the big bubble thing? Oh, Captain Video. Oh, Captain Video. This is kind of like that, but it's behind the scenes. And the main character from Satellite Sam is like a womanizer. It's kind of like when you heard that about the guy that played Hogan, how he did like weird stuff. It's kind of like that, but he dies and his son takes over, and it's so good. Last one I'm going to recommend, and it's not really an indie comic, but everybody needs to read this. It's called Chew. And it's about a detective who, the way he solves crimes is I forget what they call him, like an oral investigator. He has to put things in his mouth and chew them. And then he gets visions of things. So, but you're making an ill face. A lot of times he's at a Chinese restaurant, he takes a bite, and then all of a sudden he sees visions. He's like, the busboy killed somebody. Then again, in some of the issues where his police chief makes him eat, like, here's a corpse, we got to figure out what happened. He's like, no, please. It's a fantastic book. So Chew is my other recommendation. I'm done. I told you I was just going to run through them. Chris, you got another one?
Not
You got nothing more this
I got
week?
nothing for you. Sorry.
Alil?
I'm gonna do something not geeky. I'm late to the game on a lot of comedies,
Okay.
so I've been.
It doesn't need to be geeky. This is Input Junkie.
I know, but
I just saw Cheers for the first time.
Hey, you know it's
It's
a place
about
where
that
everyone
bad?
knows your name.
Close. No.
MASH.
Modern Family.
Ooh.
Like I watched.
Just started watching Modern Family.
I've been watching it like now, but I haven't the current episodes.
Okay.
But I've gone back and like set my DVR to every channel to record every episode, and like I think today and last night we watched like 14 episodes.
Whoa!
I couldn't stop. And then of course they go to Disneyland, and we have to watch an episode like 3 times with the kids, and because we're going to Disney this summer, and the kids are already packing for it.
Now, do you like this season as much as the past seasons?
Well, you know what? I haven't watched it in order, so I can't tell.
Okay, is this season good?
I like this season. I'm laughing.
It's good enough that it's made you go back.
Exactly,
and watch it.
it's good enough that it's brought me in.
Chris, do you watch it?
I have not watched this season, but I have, and I think it's an unbelievably funny show. I've always really liked it. I think Ed O'Neill is.
Oh, Ed O'Neill is.
I just wish they retconned because it's Shirley. What's her face is his wife.
Hemphill?
Huh?
Shirley Hemphill. Come on. Nobody knows who Shirley Hemphill is but you.
But
look him up, folks. Shirley Hemphill. Google her. Makes it a funny joke.
I wish Peg Bundy or what's her face would have been his ex-wife.
Oh,
wouldn't that have been great if they kind of
what?
retconned that in a joke?
It's Shelley Long as his ex-wife.
Shelley Long is his current ex-wife.
But if they had Katie Siegel as his ex-wife,
Yeah,
that would have been great. Yeah.
She is such a good actress.
I would have loved it if because I've only seen a few episodes with Shelley Long in them, so I don't know how many they had her on for.
Thankfully, she's only in a few.
So I mean, they
Not
could
a Shelley Long fan.
They could have done it. And another show that I've been catching up on is The Middle. And
now, is that one good? You like that one?
I really like that one. And the funny thing is they had an episode where they were flashing back. They were taking the kids on a camping trip. They were flashing back to their honeymoon where they went on a camping trip. And at the end, it was their honeymoon scene. And
spoiler.
Yeah, well, it's an old episode. Right. Raymond from Everybody Loves Raymond. I keep whatever I can't remember his last name. The guy Ray Romano, comes out of the woods, and he's like, "I know you," and I'm like, "Oh, that's great. That's
really funny."
And that's why I was like, "Oh, that's the one thing. If that show had her as his wife, it would have been like that little extra twist."
Funny. Yeah.
Because I loved Married with Children growing up. I watched that show as a kid, and I loved it.
Oh yeah, me too.
Up until
So you've just been kind of catching up on sitcoms, modern ones, but going back and watching the earlier seasons. We did that too. I mean, we went back and we had never watched Scrubs until like the last season almost.
Oh God!
And then went back and
Scrubs.
it's amazing. That's the guy from The Middle also.
Yep.
Everybody Loves Raymond. We didn't watch that until I think it was already off the air. And then we're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Yeah, it's been the new Nick at Night lineup that has got me like the George Lopez show. Everybody Loves Raymond. Is
George Lopez, is that a funny show?
I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's really good.
He's good, yeah.
Yeah, especially the earlier episodes are a lot better. As they get a little bit later,
it's just like
do the jump to
superhero
shark
comics for me. I used to watch comedies, and then I fell off, and then it became like 2 or 3 very select ones. Modern Family we watched for a while. I just fell off on it last season. We all of a sudden we're like watching it, not finding it funny. Raising Hope, that happened with. The first season of Raising Hope, hilarious.
Yeah.
Second season it was like, oops.
It was
I don't know why I'm watching
was
this.
it Ed?
I never watched Ed.
It was the first season was great, and then it was just
like what happened.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think they have this great idea, and then they go, "Oh, we actually have to write a second season."
What happened? Keep going.
What, we got picked up. Hold on.
Yeah. Oops.
Yeah.
So that's cool though, going back and doing that. So you're recommending, hey, it's the holiday season. Go back and binge some of these that you might have missed.
Yeah, why not?
That's cool. Well, good inputs, guys. That's it. Thank you everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. I'm definitely, I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to go and binge a little bit and look these up. And that's the best part about this show is the amount of stuff we get exposed to as the people on the show.
Yep.
Because I know that's something that listeners have told us is like, oh my gosh, I went out and bought these comics because you recommended it. For me personally, I am going to find Birdman. I cannot wait to see this now.
Yeah,
and I'm going to try The Middle.
I think you can find Birdman now on video on demand.
I'm going to check it out.
Truthfully, this has been out that long.
Well,
No,
on
it's
demand,
just-
they show stuff that's in theaters sometimes
Oh,
too.
do they?
Yeah, they've been because it was a limited release. I mean,
Okay.
it wasn't a. That's why we didn't, because we were planning on reviewing it on my show League of Geeks, but because it wasn't playing anywhere around here in November.
Yeah.
I had to drive to the south side of Chicago, and I wasn't doing that to go see Birdman.
You're not gonna do that for birthday.
I'm like, no, sorry, Michael Keaton, I love you, but no.
Right. I went to the plush AMC 30 in South Barrington and saw it there. So.
There you go. Yeah.
I will be sitting in my plush living room
There you go. That's it.
on
That's
my
a good
couch
place.
that is uncomfortable.
See, I think that's a theater movie, though. Wouldn't you agree? I don't know if that's an at-home movie. I think that's a theater.
You know what?
movie
They're
because it's
all
good for-
at-home movies for us right now.
Yeah,
Unless
that's
we go
true.
to picture
no,
show.
I know. Yeah.
Have you gone to the AMC in Lake in the Hills? With
Oh
the,
yeah, the
Yes,
couches.
it's amazing up there.
Yeah, it's heaven.
Yes.
Yeah.
We just started going, we saw the new Hunger Games and then The Hobbit, me and the wife, and I'm just like,
That's where you see
Why?
it. It's got big
Why?
recliners, and you can put your feet up.
Well, you're not
And it's
crowded.
Got,
I mean,
it's
you
got
know.
a bar for those people that like that. What was
right.
that?
oh, 40, yeah,
Yeah. They have the Coke
the
machine.
Coke
Yeah, one of
machine
those
that-
Coke machines.
I
yeah.
could do Diet Coke, Cherry Vanilla,
Apparently,
Zero.
apparently, all this crap is input for us too.
That's right.
All right, that's it. Thank you for listening to Input Junkie, everybody. Thank you to Blue Box. Thank you for checking out Live at the Blue Box. Please find us on our website, www.southgatemediagroup.com. And that's it. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.